Creating the master export-import list. With measures in the workplace at the moment aimed at distancing colleagues from each other, I've prepared this hopefully relatively short, painless presentation to enable you as a department to work within your workspace with a limited amount of people, with a limited amount of contact, and prepare yourself for any possible deployment. If you're in 16 MedReg, you're on hours, days, or weeks' notice to move, depending on what department or squadron you're in. If you're activated, there's a huge amount of work that has to happen between getting the call and actually deploying. One of the most demanding and time-consuming activities, logistically, and a task that has an impact on the HODs within 16 Medical Regiment is the MEIL. In a nutshell, the MEIL is an Excel spreadsheet that lists every single line item that you deploy with, down to the individual MMSL or G10 item, i.e. syringes, shovels, tentage, etc. You may have called it the water guard in the past. This is a slight mistake. The term water guard is the umbrella term of the project that enables the MOD to comply with tax regulations when deploying on exercise or operations outside of the EU. Now, this may change when we leave the EU, meaning that the water guard will come into effect as soon as we leave the UK. At the moment, it's only if we leave the EU. Why do we need the MEIL? At the point of export from the UK, information is required not only to allow export declaration, but also to ensure that for items being re-imported back into the EU after deployment, the department is able to claim returned goods relief. This procedure enables the waiver of tax liabilities. To use this procedure, the equipment must satisfy HMRC, HM Revenue and Customs protocols, which includes the disclosure of specific information. Consequently, units and formations deploying or recovering equipment and material in support of operations and exercises are required to provide item level detail. Clearly, this is a lot of work. It's definitely better, certainly at the moment, to invest this time now rather than doing it after the call for deployment comes. Your efforts are better invested now, i.e. this week, than after we're activated trying to cobble this all together. This short presentation will show you how the MEIL is completed and the lessons I've learned from my limited experience as an SQMS deploying a medical department overseas. So the MEIL, the Master Export Import List. This is what it looks like. Don't worry about the format. You have to comply with the latest format, just like anything else, medical modules, etc. You need to go online, make sure you've got the most up-to-date version. I'll ensure everybody's got the links for that. The links for your MEIL, which I'm going to create on SharePoint, will have the most up-to-date version. Just to let you know, it's the HOD's responsibility to make sure that the format that they're displaying for their MEIL is the most up-to-date. Obviously, if it changes, I'll let you know about it and I'll have checked it myself. But this is what it looks like for one box, and I'm going to take you through it bit by bit. The operation or exercise name, fairly self-explanatory. In this case, it was Ex-Ascari Storm 2020-01. Whatever operation you're on, Trenton, etc., that will go in here. Consignor. Remember what the consignor is? I remember it like this. The sendor is the consignor. So in this case, 16 Med is Alpha 3856 Alpha. That will always remain the same if it's 16 Med that's sending something. Consignee. This is the person receiving the kit. In this case, it was 3 para. So you can see Alpha 3856 Alpha, the consignor was 16 Med, the consignee was the QMs of 3para, and that's their UIN there, their unit identification number. This sort of information will be confirmed before you go, so don't worry too much about it. It's just to give you an understanding of what it is. Transport mode, again, self-explanatory. In this case, it was air. It could be sea or even rail. Flight number, vessel name. Again, this was the flight number, but that information will be provided to you. POE, point of embarkation. In this case, it's Brize Norton because it's air, but it could be Portsmouth if it's by sea or wherever else. This will be directed to you also. Port of arrival, don't be confused, it doesn't have to be a port. It could just be the airhead. Again, here it was Nairobi. All the information from this arrow to the left, don't worry too much about it. This is operation or exercise specific, and this will be directed to you. And clearly, it's the same for every single line item. It doesn't really change, and all you do is cut, paste, and drag it down. So this was just an introduction to it, just to let you know what it means, just for your understanding. The next part that I move on to is more important, and it's specific to each department and each head of each department. So the grey, don't worry about it too much. Everything to the right of it is department specific, which is more your bag. So the NSN, this is the thing where there is potential problems. You can get the NSN for the item off of your ANU or off of the module list. In that sense, it shouldn't be too hard. You either cut and paste it off of the module list or you take it off of the ANU. Previously, before the MJDI migration, i.e. the time when MJDI was down and they've produced a new iteration of it, I used to be able to get your ANU in a digital format, put it on a spreadsheet in a way which would cut and paste straight into the MEIL. At the moment, as I'm recording this, I can't do that. So one of the things that you might have to do is either yourself or hopefully if you've got someone in your department that can do it, they may have to go and type up your ANU, your NSN numbers, and the item numbers as they appear on your ANU. I'm going to try it and not let that happen. I'm going straight over to the QMs in the morning, but last thing Friday, there was nothing on MJDI that allowed me to do that. So what you need to do is get your NSNs for your line items onto this spreadsheet. The problem is that, as you can see, the NSN is split up here into 4 different sections. You can't cut and paste an NSN straight in. It has to be divided into 4. And I know what you're thinking, your brain's just shutting down and thinking, I can't be arsed with this. It's quite easy, and I'll show you how to do that. It doesn't take much effort, and it remove hours and hours and hours of your time. It does actually work. When 3para's Med Sergeant was deploying to Kenya, we was collaborating on the MEIL. When I showed him this, he was really grateful for it, and it really did save him and me hours work. So just pay attention to the next slide, and it will show you how to split an NSN into 4 separate columns. To make space for the NSNs, you need to create 3 new columns. In order to do this, first of all, right-click the column next to the NSNs. Once you've right-clicked on that column, what you need to do is press Insert, and do that 3 times, which will give you 3 empty columns next to your NSN. Your spreadsheet should now look like this. What you can see is you've got the NSNs on the left, 3 empty columns, and then the remainder of the information for your spreadsheet to the right of the 3 empty columns. So, first step in splitting the NSN into 4 separate columns so it can be cut and pasted directly into a MEIL. What you need to do is click and drag and highlight the column with the NSNs in, just as you can see I've done here on this slide. Next up, what you want to do once you've highlighted your NSN field is click on the data tab at the top. Once you've got the data drop-down box, the drop-down box will appear, and you want to select text to columns. So what you should next get is a box that looks like this. This is asking you how you want to separate the field that you've selected. As you can see, under the box that says preview of selected data, it's showing you the NSNs. Now the NSNs are separated with a dash. What we want to do is make the dash basically turn into a column everywhere there's a dash. It's quite easy to do it. What you need to do is click Other at the bottom. Once you've clicked on Other, type a dash in the box which is outlined in blue, click Next, and it should separate the fields into columns where there was once dashes. Click Next again, then Finish, and you should have a screen like this. It will show you an alert like this, asking if you want to paste the data into the new columns. Click OK. So your module list now looks something like this. As you can see, the NSN is now split into 4 separate columns, and it can be cut and pasted into the MEIL. Also, your UOM, i.e. if it's each, pack, box, whatever, that information can also go into the MEIL as it's required. Also, you can use costing, the cost of each line item. That also needs to go on the MEIL. Okay, so your MEIL will look something like this. There's a couple of other little bits and bobs you need to know. This here is the column where if it's a serialized bit of kit, that's where it needs to go. This will be pertinent for EME. Myself, I've got binoculars, prismatic compasses, things that have got serialized numbers on them. That needs to go on the MEIL. Here you'll see we've got box number 1. We've used the naming convention 16162301. Box 2 and box 3. As you can see as well, we have got the weights of each individual box on the first line. Now, something to bear in mind, if you're a department and you've called your first box 16162301 and Resus have done the same and ITU have done the same, etc., everybody's going to have 16162301. There's going to be multiple boxes that are exactly the same. So what you're probably going to have to call your box is ITU 16162301 or Resus 16162301, etc. Otherwise, when we collate the MEIL and I have to submit the MEIL for the entire squadron, we're going to have multiple boxes that are the same. So I hope that's made it a little bit more clear on how you complete the MEIL. A quick word on packing notes. If you're using a packing note that doesn't look like this, then unfortunately you need to change it. And the reason being is this. The MEIL can be cut and pasted directly into the packing note. As you can see here, this is essentially what I just showed you on the slide before. each individual box is simply cut and pasted into the new packing note. I've seen lots of various packing notes that we've used in the past. We need to submit a MEIL regardless of the packing note that we use. We may as well use a packing note which we can get the information extracted straight from the MEIL, straight onto the packing note, saving 2 jobs. Okay, to wrap this up then. If we do deploy, and we deploy outside of the EU, the HOD will have to complete a MEIL. We will have to submit that MEIL to the movers at the point of embarkation, whether that's an airhead, a port, etc. If that MEIL is incomplete or wrong or inaccurate, they can, and they have in the past, impounded the kit and it's not gone where it needs to go at the right time. That has happened whilst I've been in 16 Med. It happened on Op Trenton and it's happened another time since. So don't think that the importance of the MEIL can be underestimated. You as the HOD need to invest the time, as I need to myself, next week in getting this right. Just to reiterate again, just in case there's any confusion, every item you take, whether it's in a box or not, if it's a stretcher by itself or it's a syringe inside a box, needs to be put on the MEIL. Now I think I've given you a couple of tools to make life a little bit easier. I'm going to try and get our ANUs digitally, so all we need to do is upload the modules that we take and our ANUs and then play around with the MEIL to get it right. The difficulty that we've got is that we all know that one module doesn't go in one box and one piece of G10 doesn't go by itself. They go in bundles and they go in boxes. We all know the difficulties and the things that we need to overcome to get this right, but it is so much better to use next week the protected time that we've got to get this done. A little bit of pain will save a lot of pain in the future if the balloon goes up and we need to do this until it's done, while we've got all the pressures and everything else that needs to happen when we actually do deploy. Clearly, this is a busy time and it could get busier. Like I just said, do the work now, as opposed to when we need to deploy. Also, in the past, we've done 2 different things. We've done our water guard and our packing notes. If you invest the time in getting the MEIL right, you simply cut and paste the MEIL onto the packing note. It really is that simple. Okay, what I could have done is just tell you to go online, do this online training, completing the master export import list, and basically just leave you to get it done by yourselves. What I've tried to do is share with you the difficulties that I've had, the things that I've had to do to get a MEIL done from a med perspective. Clearly, I haven't had the time to show you every single little thing that you need to do, but it is massively within your interest to get this done. Please let me know next week if you've got any dramas with it. I'm more than happy to come and help everybody. I'm going to be doing my own. We've got next week completely protected to get this done. Please use this time wisely and get it put to bed. There'll be a lot of little bits and pieces that you'll need to ask me questions about. I'm more than happy to do that whilst I'm completing my own MEIL. But from the OC and the Squadron 2IC, they know that this is the week when you are completing your master export and import list, and we've got it protected. So please take full advantage of it. Thanks for listening, and just about kept it under 20 minutes. So happy creating your MEIL time.